Hello and welcome back. It's puzzle time with Sudoku Sleuth, and today we're playing Oil and Water. Now, this was essentially a series of puzzles from a constructor that we've actually featured a few times before, Blobz, and his puzzles are always absolutely phenomenal. Now, he's got this series of puzzles which are all about oil and water, and as I get into the grid and take you through the rules, you'll absolutely sort of understand it fairly quickly. Now, I admit I've been very intimidated about featuring it for quite some time at this point, because I'm not entirely sure I'm going to be able to solve it. So, most of the puzzles in this series are 3-star or even higher sometimes, but I'm going easy with a 2-star difficulty rated one for today, and hopefully in line with some of the other difficult puzzles that I featured on weekends in, well, past ones. Right, enough of an introduction. Very quickly, just before we get into the puzzle, you can see here, I'm sort of imagining this as like vials of oil that are floating on water, and I went with a nice kind of olive oil, lovely shade of green on top of the water. Now, I think I can get away with this because there are others in the series called oily water, where I immediately imagine more like oil spillages. So at least here is something that's a little bit cleaner, a bit nicer. Let's get into the puzzle. Right, so Oil and Water by Blobz. Normal Sudoku rules apply. So you're all going to be familiar with this. It means place the digits 1 to 9 once each in every row, in every column, and in every 3x3 box, if I can actually select a 3x3 box. Then we have digits in cages do not repeat and must sum to the given clue. So standard killer cage rules in that these 4 cells, whatever they may be, have to sum up to 28 because that's the number that's given in the top left corner. And one explicit thing that Blobz here has mentioned is all of the 4 digits must be unique. Excellent. Now, here is the twist on this is each cage is either full of oil, which are even digits, full of water, which are odd digits, or a mix of both. Now, of course, I think many of you are going to be understanding that oil and water don't really mix. So Blobz takes this further with, in all cases, each row within a cage is just one type. It's either oil or water, so they're not mixing, and oil floats on top of the water. So even digits will always be above odd digits in mixed cages. So trying to illustrate this would be a little bit tricky. So I'm going to actually use green and blue in similar to the thumbnail. So if you imagine that this is a mix of oil and water, then the 2 cells at the top will be olivey oil, and the 2 cells at the bottom will be water. And water in this particular case can only be odd digits, and oil in this case can only be even digits. So this could be, I don't know, 4, 6, and 8. I'm not really trying to do the maths here. This could be 5, 7, and 9. And essentially we need to pick up 4 digits from this list that add up to 28. Now, of course, some cages, this might not be a mix at all. They might be all blue, as in they are all odd digits, or all odd digits, or entirely made of oil. They are all even digits. So we're going to have to clearly spend a bit of time trying to think through what are the options as we analyze this grid. Now, if everything I've just described hasn't intimidated you, if you like the idea of trying to figure out where is the oil, where is the water, link will be in the description down below for you to play along as usual. And with that said, I'm going to restart the clock and see how I get on. So before I actually even think about any cage for a second, what I'm very tempted to do is essentially to pay attention to cages that absolutely have to be mixed. Now, if you take, for example, a 13 cage with 2 cells, I know that they have to be 1 odd and 1 even. That's the only way I'm going to get to an odd number like 13. If I make them both even, I'm going to fail because that would add up to an even number. If I make them both odd, I will also fail because that would add up to an even number still. So this has to be a mixture of oil and water to get to 13. Same for the 7. And I'm just looking around. Odd is on the bottom. So you can see the 21 cage, for example. I have to have an odd digit in there. And odd is water. So this absolutely has to be water. Now I probably can get away with either two odds to make it an even plus the odd to make it overall odd, or two evens plus the odd to make it overall odd. So I don't actually know what color these are. Can't take that logic to the 18. The 10 cage I probably can. You can, no, can I not? I don't think I can. No, yes I can. It's almost like the reverse of what I've done with the 21 cage, in that if you think about the 10 cage, if it's entirely water, you will fail because that would mean three odd digits and somehow they need to add up to an even. So at a minimum, the top layer has to be even or oil, and then it doesn't matter what these two are. So same will be true in here. This has to be even. We've got the same thing in this 13 cage that I sort of ignored from earlier. This would have to be even. Similar to in the 18 cage and the 10 cages, this has to be even. I don't know what these two are, but I know that this is even. 20 cage in 3 cells. This is much trickier. Sort of much trickier in one way. I know that it can't be all water, because that would be 3 odd digits. That would add up to an odd digit, and it's not 20. So at the minimum, the top layer has to be oil. Is that true for the 8 cage? I think so. Yeah, it can't all be blue. That has to be oil. 13 cage, that can all be water. It can't all be oil though. So the bottom layer absolutely has to be water as in odd. Can I use the same logic here with the 17? Probably not. So because it's an odd digit and there's 4 of them, I have to have an odd digit, don't I? Yeah, if all 4 are even, it doesn't work. If all 4 are odd, it doesn't work. I need to have a mixture in here. And therefore, just thinking about this, because oil floats to the top, this has to be odd. Water float is at the bottom, it has to be even. And then I've got essentially odds right now. These two have to be even, but obviously they could be double odd or double even. So I don't know what this one is. At this point, we've nearly done all the cages in terms of what is forced in terms of parity. Now, the only one left that I want to think about is the 28 cage, because I think it has to have both 8 and 9. You see, if I do not include a 9, the maximum I can make this would be 5, 6, 7, and 8, which is only 26. So there has to be a 9. Odds are at the bottom, sorry, at the top. So that has to have a 9 here. Now, if I do not include a 9, then the maximum would be 5, 6, 7, and 9. That's 60 and 20. No. 7 and 9 is 16. 5 and 6 is 11. That would be 27. It's not 28, so I have to have an 8. So because the two layers have to be this, essentially we've got water and oil, and remember every row has to be the same. We've got 2 in water and 2 in oil, and together they add up to an even number. I don't think I can do something similar with the 20 until I start to place a few more digits. So that's as far as we're going to be able to take it at this point. We should probably start thinking about the cages. Have I got something similar with the 18 here as I did with the 10? I mean, I've clearly done this with this 18, but for some reason I ignored this one. Clearly can't be 3 odds. So they can't all be blue. That has to be green, and then we have 2 digits at the bottom. Okay. Right. That's enough thinking about parity. Shall we actually try and do some numbers? So 8 cages in 3 cells always has to have a 1. Because this is either 1, 2, 5. Yeah, let me just think about this. It's either 1, 2, 5 or 1, 3, 4. Because it has to have a 1, it has to have an odd digit, Therefore, the bottom has to be water. And then it's either 1 and 3 or 1 and 5 with a definite 1. And up here it's 2 or 4. So that's the 8 cage pencil marked. Interesting. Okay. So we know that this is odd. We know it is not a 1. This is 3 or 5, and obviously 7 is too big because I can't write in a 0. So essentially we've got a 1, 3, 5 triplet here. And 1 is not allowed in the 7 because it has to be inside the 8 cage. And to get to 7, I think that's another 2, 4, isn't it? So we've got a 2, 4 pair and a 1, 3, 5 triplet. So this is quite interesting probably for the 18 cage, because now the minimum, so this is either 6 or 8, just the last remaining evens that are not 2 or 4. And in here, now if I make this odd, if I make this water, then the only option I have in here left, because I've already got a 1, 3, 5 triplet, is 7 and 9. That's 16. With a minimum of 6, I've broken it. So this cannot be odd. This has to be even. And then to get 3 even digits that add up to 18, I'm almost certain this is going to be forced. And I can't use 2 and 4. So it's 4, 6, and 8. That's 4, 6. That's an 8. Hang on. Let's try that again. Excuse me. It's 4, 6, and 8. That's not a 4 because we've got a 2, 4 in here. These are 4. That is a 2. That is a 4. That 2 forces this to be a 5. These are not 5s. This is 1, 3. And yet it does add up. 1, 3, and 4 to make an 8. We're on the right track, seemingly. This is all the even digits done in box 9. These are all going to be odd digits now. Now the 10 cage is interesting. So the absolute minimum I can make this will be 1 and 3 with a 6. That makes it a 10. And potentially this is what I actually have to do, because remember the 5 is gone. So if I'm not doing 1 and 3, the next possible set would be 1 and 7, possible, with a 2 at the top. But what I couldn't do is 3 and 7, that would be too big, or 1 and 9, because, you know, that basically means I need 0 or even negative numbers up here. So once again, I need to have a 1 in here with the 3, 7, and one of these two cells is a 9. With this cell and these cells, there's a 9 somewhere in here. In fact, with the 8s and the 8s, I have an 8 somewhere up there. 1 and 3 are gone for the 13 cage. So options are 5 and 8, yeah. 7 and 6, still yes. 9 and 4 not available because the 4 is gone. Okay. Somehow it doesn't feel like enough information. Here's something actually. So when we basically use the maximum possible to get to 18 here with 3 cells. So 4, 6, and 8 can only ever add up to 18. 4, 6, and 8, if this was all green, will only get to 18, not 20. So these have to be water, as in odd digits. 1, 3, and 5 are looking at this cell. This has to be 7 or 9. And then these two cells have to add up to either 13 or 11. And it'll be a few different ways of doing this. I don't know if I want to show all of them. But if we think about it, this cannot be a 2 because that would mean a double 9. So this is from 4, 6, and 8. If it's a 4, we need 16, which would make this another 7, 9. If it's a 6, that would be 14. And of course, I can't use a 7 at that point. So that would be 5 and 9. And it's not 6 and 8 because it's not even. And this 5 would give us the order. That would be a 9. That would be a 5. Then lastly, if this is an 8, this would be a 12. So it's either 7 and 5 or 9 and 3. Again, it has to be odd digits. So 8 and 4 not available. Okay, so it wasn't that much to pencil mark. You can see I'm being quite slow and methodical. Just, I guess, new variant, new twist on normal things that we sort of need to look at. So I'm being very methodical here. Or it'd be quite funny. I mean, it's not funny, but what would be very funny is if I do eventually still break the puzzle somewhere. So I'm taking a look at row 8 right now. And if you think about the parities that are left, I've got 3 even digits. So I need to have a 4th one. And I also have 3 odd digits. So I need to have 2 odd digits. Now, what I couldn't do is have an odd digit in here and then a mixture of odd and even in the same layer in the 12th cage. That wouldn't work. That's against the rules. So essentially, these two have to be odd. This has to be even. It's not 2 or 4. This is a 6, 8, just to complete the row. You can see ones and ones are lining up to add a 1 in here. And then essentially I have 3 things that add up to 11, 2 of which are even up here. Because I've got 4 in the box that are odd, I really couldn't make it 6 odd digits in box 7. What do we have left? I mean, we've done all the evens in row 7. This is odd. That's the last even. And it is a 2. It's just forced. So there is actually a 2 up here that's also forced. So now we're at 3 and we need 2 numbers that add up to 9. And the options are 3 and 6, 4 and 5. I'm not sure there's anything that's forcing it one way or the other. And yeah, 8 and 1 is obviously gone because we've already used the 1. So the options are 2, 4, 6, and then 1, 3, 5, depending on what's going on there. Then down here, I don't actually know. I know that there is a 6, 8 with something. This is 5 or 9. Is it 5 or 9? No. We've got 1, 3, 7. We've got the 5. This is either... It's interesting. Is it forced at all? Doesn't seem like it. Essentially, I've got 3, 7, 9s. But I'm not sure any of it is forced. There's an even digit down here and an odd digit, so I can't even color these. Kind of tempted to move on and move up into box 5. So with the 4 here, we know that this is not 4, 9. What is that? So the options are 5, 8, and I guess 6 and 7, and then 9 and 4 are not an option. Doesn't feel like enough. 10 cage. Can this be 2, 3, 5? I guess that would be 2, 5. Sorry, that would be 3, 5 with a 2. Possible. Hang on. 10 cage. It's either always has a 1 or it's 2, 3, 5. So there are always odd digits. Yes. And then it's either a 1 or 3, 5. So if it's 1, let's just think about options. It's 1, 2, 6, which it can't be because it would be 2 even, sorry, not 1, 2, 6, 1, 2, 7, which is actually possible. So I could do 1, 7 with a 2. Next option would be 1, 3, and 6. So that is possible. Next option would be 1, 4, 5. So I guess a 4 in here with a 5. This is not looking good. And then finally, last option is 2, 3, 5 with a 2 and 3, 5. So at least we're not adding any more digits. This is tricky. Can I make this all odd and get to 21? 9, 7, and 5 is 21. So that is possible. I can see, in fact, this is a 9. Therefore, this is not a 9. That's a 9. That's 3, 7. That's essentially the remainder in here. These are now a 5, 9 pair. And down here, we've got 7 and 9 with a 6 and 8. What's interesting is because these include a 7 and 9, this cannot be 7 and 9. Now, if this is a 3, that would be a 9. I'm actually sort of tempted to work through these now. So this is either 3 with a 9 to get to 12 and an 8. 5 and 7 would get to 12 with an 8. 5 and 9 would be 14 with a 6. So it's a bit more restricted. Therefore, no 6 because we've got a 6, 8 pair. That's 2, 4. That adds up to 6. That has to be a 1, 5 setup. To get to a 12, that gives me a 3 in here. The 3 can't be with a 7 and a 10 in here. That's a 9. And that's 12 with an 8 to get to 20. That gives me a 6 over there, which thankfully adds with a 7. Given that was eliminated, the 5 was eliminated with a 1, 5 in here. This is now 6 and 7. That 7 removes the 7 as an option in there. Even removes a 6 as an option in there. So at least, what was it again? 1, 3, 6 is no longer an option in here. Now, there's still so many in this box that I'm not sure this is where we continue, if I'm honest. Yeah, this is tricky. I can understand the difficulty rating for sure. So, can this be a 2? The answer is yes with a 7, 9. Because you see, if it's not a 2, that would be, and it's not a 4, this would be 6 or 8. It immediately starts to limit some of our options. 20 cage is tempting, 20 cage is tempting. Actually, here is something. If we combine these two, they add up to 48. And if we're using different digits, we're not going to be able to get to 48. Because, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 is only 44. So we have to share digits. Now, the tricky part is, if this is sort of green and blue, then we're forcing them to have different digits. Because I can't put the 9, for example, down here if this is split. I could put the 9 down there if it isn't. So essentially what I'm saying is the 20 cage is a single color or a single material. It's either entirely water or entirely oil. I don't know which one it is right now. But it's one color. And I don't know how to use that just yet. How are we doing for time? 20 minutes. It's flying by. Twos. There's a 2 in here. There's a 2 in there, including all the way up here. A 2 can't be there. If there is a 2 in here, it implies that this is made up of entirely even digits, that it's all oil. And then 2 with a 6 and 8, which would be the maximum I can make it, is only 16. So that's not a 2. It's not a huge deduction, but at this point I really will take anything. I have 3 evens. There has to be another one in here. I don't know if this is correct, so I'm just going to voice what I'm thinking. If this is even, then essentially I've got all 4 evens written. And this would force this to be a 2 because that would become odd. And as soon as you have a 2 in here, and this is even, obviously both of these are even, then we have the same problem again. So it's a long way of saying that I think this is odd, this is even, and this is odd. It's just not enough, really. I really do need to make more of a breakthrough. You know, slow and steady really isn't winning the race right now. Let's just think about it. Come on. You don't even have to have a 1 in here with a 2, 3, 5 setup. So I have no idea what this could be. Maybe it's time to think about the 21 cage. If it's 5, 7, and 9, that breaks the puzzle. So the only way, if this is all odd, as in all water, it's 5, 7, 9. Yes. And if they're all 5, 7, 9, what does it do to this cell? Can't be any of them. It sees all 3. So that has to be even. This has to be odd. Unfortunately, I think I can basically have my choice of odd in here. These, if this is the maximum here is 9, the minimum here is 6, which is, sorry, not 6, 9, the minimum here is 11. Sorry, not 11, 12. 9 in here would make this a minimum of 12. Which is quite a high minimum, isn't it? For evens. So I could do 8 and 4. And I think it's the only way I could do it, because I can't use 6. No, but, I mean, this could be something else. I could do, I think it's actually 4, 6, 8. 2 would be too low, because then that would mean that there are 2 cells that are adding up to 19. That clearly doesn't work. So there is no 2 in here. This is 4, 6, or 8. And I'm tempted to say there's a definite 8. Yeah, 4 and 6 is 10, which would require me to put an 11 in here. So there has to be an 8 in one of these 2 cells. Now, that forces this to be 7 or 9. So if this is 6 and 8, that's 14, plus a 7 to get to 21, or 4 and 8 to 12, plus a 9 to get to 21. 8s, unfortunately, it's across boxes, so that's not particularly helpful. So one of these is odd, one of these is even. If I can just figure out which is which, this will be quite the breakthrough, I think. And I'm not quite seeing it, if I'm honest. Maybe the 17 cage. Yeah, these 2 can't be even anymore because we've already got 3 in the row. These 2 have to be odd. Unfortunately, you know, there's lots of options here. So this is not 8 because of this cell. This is from 2, 4, and 6. If it is 6, which feels quite high, it puts a lot of pressure in here. 6 gets me down to 11. 11 and 3 odd cells would be, yeah, there's plenty of breathing space. I could do 1, 3, and 7. I think it'd actually be forced. It would be 1, 3, 7 if this is a 6, which again is possible. So I'm not really learning much from this right now. Yeah, I think I need to figure out what's going on with this 20 cage. That seems to be the only way forward. So we said it has to be both the same color, and it's either all even or all odd. And look at me mixing up my evens and odds. That's the danger with the colors that I've picked. I'm sure some of you were shouting at your screen saying, Sleuth, you're making a big mistake. That 9 now tells me that's not a 9, that's a 9. Dear oh dear. 9s are up here. 8 is now only one of these two cells because of this setup with these two 8s in here. Now, maybe it's worthwhile thinking very much about these now that I've corrected it. Excuse me, that wasn't meant to be 8, that was meant to be 9. Right, come on, let's think about this. So if this is 7 and 9, that would be 16, plus an 8, that would be 24. So this could be 4, 8 with a 7. That's one option. The other option would be that this is 5, 9, as in this is 14, and this also adds up to 14 with 6 and 8. Is this helping me at all? I'm really not sure. Does it help me with the 20? Let's think about the 20 next then. So if they are all even, it's 2, 4, 6, and 8, which actually does add up to 20. That does work. It would put 8s in here though, with these 8s. I'm not sure this would work. Let's just think about this. We've got essentially 8s lining up here. Now become 6. I'm not sure it does work. If this is 2, 4, 6, 8, I think it will break, but I'm not sure how I can show this. So the only way I could put a 2, because of this 2, I've eliminated all of these, then 2 would be in one of these two cells. Actually, yeah, it could be one of either. That would be a 4, that would be a 2. Let's just, I want to almost test it. I think it does break. It looks like it doesn't, but let's just say if these are 8s, and remember, because of these 8s, that would be a 6. And therefore the 6 would be up here. So the 6 would go there. The 2 would go here. And obviously, because that would become a 4, this would become 4. Now, does that work? That would force this to be a 2. Essentially, we've got 4 even digits. That would become a 2. That would be a 4, 6, 8 setup. And look at this. In fact, just look at this. We've got 5 even digits. I mean, I didn't even need to think about it that hard. If I made all of this even, that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These are all odd. Now, from 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9 to add up to 20. Now, if I don't use the 9, then the maximum I can get to is 16. So 9 is a definite, it's in here. And then I need 3 more digits that add up to 11. And it's either 137, I think it's forced, isn't it? It is just 137. I don't see how else I can add up to 11. So 1357 is 16. So there has to be a 9. Remainder of 11. And 357 is too big, that's 15. So the 1 is definitely in here. That means now I need to add up to 10. And clearly that doesn't include a 5. So this is also forced. This is 137 with a 9 up here. We've got all 5 odd digits. That is an even digits now. Don't quite have enough yet to bottom out anything. We've got 4 odd digits. There's an even one up here. Yeah, not enough again. I'm really finding this quite tricky today for some reason. Sorry, let me delete this before it confuses me. Is it 17 cage next? How are we doing? 30 minutes. Time's flying, huh? Come on, am I seeing anything that would just sort of really break this apart? So the only place where a 9 can be in these 5 odd digits is in here. 9 with a forced 8 means that this is 17. This has to be 4, 8. This 4, 8 is looking at this 2, 4. That's got to be a 2. That's not a 2. Now, this is either 1, 3, 7 or 2, 3, 5. 1, 3, 7. Sorry, yeah. 1, 7, and 2. Which would make this 3, would make this 5. That all works. 2, 3, 5 would still make this 7. So either there's a 7 in here, or there's a 5 in here. 2, 1, 7. 2, 1, 7 makes this a 3, makes this a 5. 2, 3, 5 makes this a 7, makes this a 1. I don't think 7 can be here, because essentially there's a 5, 7 kind of pair through there. Come on, this is not a 9 anymore. That's the 9. That 9 is looking at this 5 and 9. 5 doesn't exactly help us with the 1, 3, 7 setup. Still don't quite have this. 7 is in one of these cells. 7 is up here. 7 up here tells me this is not 7, 9. This is not a 2. That is a 2. That's 6, 8. If it's 8, these would be 10. 3, 7 is not available, but 1, 9 is. I could have a 9 and a 1. If that was 8. And that would be the only way that would work. If this is a 6, I need to get to 12. And that would have to be 9 and 3, isn't it? I don't have 7 because of these 7s. So the 9 is forced, and this is 1 or 3. These are not 9s. That's a 9. The 1 and 3 are lining up as a pair. This is not 1, 3. This is 5, 7. That's not a 5. This is 1 or 3. So this is 2, 1, 7 or 2, 3, 5. We've got another 1, 3 pair. There's a 7 in here. That's a 5. This is now not 2 or 6. This is 4, 8. That gives me another pair in the box. That's forcing this to be a 6. That's got to be a 5. That's got to be a 7. That means that this is a 1. This is a 3. These are not 3s. That's a 1, 7 pair now. 4 and 8 doesn't help. And now we've got a 5 with a 4, 8. Doesn't help me here. Okay. We're making like very slow but steady progress. So I am going to take it. I'm not going to complain too much about that. 1, 7, and 9 says that this is 3 or 5. No 5s in here. In fact, no 5, no 3, no 9. This is 1 or 7. So this is starting to get very restricted. and this is not 6 or 8, this is 2 or 4. So we have a lot of low digits. So for example, if this is a 1, the maximum I can make this would be 4, 5, with the 1, that would be a 10, and that would be a 7. So unfortunately, that is actually possible. If that is a 7, no, I mean, I don't want to go down that route. It's close, but not quite enough to really start thinking about this. Have I not cracked any of this? It doesn't look like I have. That 1 gives me a 3, a 1. A 1 gives me a 3. The 6 gives me an... I've broken it. And I've broken it because I put a 6 in here and somehow decided it can only add up with a 5. Sorry about that. Despite being extremely careful, it didn't actually work. So that's a 5. That's a 3 to add up to 10. That's a 1. That's a 3. That's a 1. And that's an 8. That looks better. Now, my conclusions here are not entirely correct anymore. This is not 3, 5, or 9. This is 1 or 7. This is not 3, 7, or 9. This is 1 or 5. And this is still 2 or 4. So this might actually be worthwhile thinking about now. Let's think about this. If this is a 1, 8, 12, that will put a 5 in here. Feels like there's something there to it. I'm just not quite seeing for some reason. So I'm sort of almost giving up and looking elsewhere just in case there's something that's a bit easier. Just feels like there's too many options. So if this is 4, this would add up to 13. And the only way to get to 13 would be presumably with the 3. No, 1, 5, and 7. And no 7s, that would be a 7. And essentially that would be 1 and 5, presumably. Not sure about this, really not sure about this. If this is 4, is it really forced? If I have 4 and 13, 4 and 9, that would get me to 13. Then I need to get 1 and 3 in here. And there's, because there's no 3s, I couldn't put 1 and 3 with a 9. So that can never be a 9. It can never be a 7. This is 1, 3, or 5. No, surely it could be 9. 9 with a 2 would be 11. And then I need to get to 6, and then 1 and 5 would be possible. So unfortunately, 9 is still on the table. You just ignore. In fact, 9 is forced. Just Sudoku, Sleuth, just look around. That's a 9. We established with a 4 would require a 1-3 pair, which is not available. Yeah, 9 and 4 is 13. I need a 4, so that is forced. That is a 2. That's 11. I need a 6. Can only be a 1-5 pair. That's a 1. That's a 5. That 5, sorry, that 1 looks down here. That's a 5. That's a 1. These are not 1s. There's a 1 up here, essentially. This is 3 or 7. Still not known. There's a 2 in here, specifically in one of these 2 cells. 40 minutes. This is going strong. I think we've done all the 9s at this point. Maybe it's just worthwhile just thinking about Sudoku for a second, rather than continuing to make my life difficult. As in, maybe the 13 cage. Let's just think about what this is. This is no longer all odd, because that would mean 6 odds. So there's definitely at least 1 even. Now, if it's 2 odds and an even, that will make it overall even, and I need to make sure that it isn't. So that's 2 evens in here. Now, this is not 1, 5, or 9. This is 3 or 7. If it's 3, these have to add up to 10. Both 2 and 8 work. I could have 8 and 2, and both as in 4 and 6 also work. So this is not a great option. If this is 7, though, this would have to be 6. And the only option would be 2 and 4, which I don't think works because it breaks this cell. So that's not a 7, that's a 3. And it's either 2, 8 or 4, 6. Okay. At this point, I've largely done all the cages, haven't I? So, Sudoku, 1, 3, 6 in here. Yeah, that's not a 6, that's a 2. A 2 in here means these need to add up to 8. That's 1 and 7, that's a 3. That's not a 3. In terms of the rest of this, we still don't know if this is 5 or 7. How do we not know this so late into the puzzle? What are the remaining digits? We've got 5, 7, 5, 7, 8, and a 4. Where does the 4 go? Don't even know that, do we? You know, you can make a lot of progress in this puzzle, but it's really is tricky. So we need, that wasn't a 1, that is a 1. That's 3 or 7, 3 or 7. We need another even digit up here, and it's not 2 or 8, it is 4 or 6. So 3, 7, 3, 7, 4, 6. One of these is an 8. It's not a huge revelation. Come on, Sleuth. I'm probably just way too laser focused on the puzzle itself that I'm just missing out obvious Sudoku. So this is probably where I should focus. So for example, I need a second 4, 8. Essentially this 4, 8 somewhere in this row. Now, can it be in here? Is a question that's on my mind. Because this is either even or odd. Specifically, it's either 7 or 4, 8. Now, if it's 4, 8, what does it do? Essentially, 2, 8, 2 and 8 would make this a 4 and would break the 4, 8. 4, 6 would make this a 2. So this is, I mean, it sounds so ridiculous. This is 7 or 8? Because essentially we don't have 2 and 4. We've got a virtual 2-4 pair. If this is 2, 8, that's a 4. If this is 4, 6, that's a 2. So from the 4, 8 options, it's not in here. We've got essentially no 4. It's either 8, and the only available digit would be 7, odd digit, I should say, 7. And it feels like it should be resolvable, but, you know, I seem to be able to do it either way. In the sense that if this is 4, 6, that would be a 2, that would be an 8, and that would be a 7. Now, presumably I could do it the other way around with 7, 6, 2, 8, and 4. Yeah. Right. More Sudoku, surely, is the answer here. One of these is a 6. Yeah, not enough. You know, you just feel like you're missing something that just really opens it up, and I'm not seeing it. So let's take a moment. Oh dear, 45 minutes. Sorry, let me just pause whilst I sneeze. Pardon me. Right. So we've got a triplet in here. That's not a 6, that's a 1. The 2 is up here. These are all odd. That's the 5 odd digits in row 6. These are all even. The 6 is in here, the 2 is in there. This is 4 or 8. And presumably this is 4, 6 or 8. That's 4 or 6. That's 4 even digits. That's an odd. That's odd. That 7 forces things, doesn't it? That becomes a 6. That's no longer 4, 6. That's 2, 8 in this order. That's a 4. That's a 2. This is 4, 6, or 8. I can't seem to pin it down any further. No. That's a 7. That's 4, 6, or 8. I know what these 3 cells are. Do I know? There's a loose 4, 6 in essence, with an odd digit up here that is a 5. A 5 with 4 or 6. I have to have an 8 in here. Yes, I do. Then we have 4 and 6 with 1 and 7 up here. That is now a 7, because we've got that 3 in here. This is 3 with 4 or 6. And again, 5 with 4 or 6. So these are essentially 3 even digits. That's got to be an even digit. This is another 4, 8. This must be the 5, 7. That is in fact now 4. So that is 5. That is 7. That gives me a 6, 8. So no 4s in here. 6, 8 pair gives me the 4. This is not a 4. This is another 6, 8 pair. That's a 3. That's a 6. Right, it's almost getting unstuck. Come on. We've still got a 4 up here, and I don't know where it is. 2, 4. These are all odd, which includes a 3. This 3 tells me the order is in here. This is 1 or 7. In fact, it is a 1, 7, 1. This is not 1 or 7. This is a 1, 7 pair. Even better, this 1 tells me the order. That's 7, that's 1. This is 4 or 6, and it's not 6 because of the 6, 8. That's a 4. That's a 6. That is not helping me because I've got a 4, 8 pair in here. This is 5 or 6. How am I not breaking this? How am I meant to break this? Am I missing something, maybe? Yes, I am. 8, 6. How long was that there? 8, 6, 8. That 8 gives me a 4, an 8, a 4, 8, 4, 8. This is 5, 6. This is now not 4. This is a 3, 6 pair. I know what these are. This is 4 and 7, I'm going to say. That 7 is known. The 2 and 5 are not known, though. The 4, no. The 3, yeah, 6, 3, 5, 6, 2, 5, not 5, 5, and if I've not made any mistakes, 4 for the finish for today's puzzle. Only 150 people solved it, so I mean, it certainly deserves the attention. And I think aside from the odd Sudoku where I was just blind for some reason, or when I somehow placed a 5 rather than a 7 in here to add it up to 13, relatively smooth solve, just quite slow on my part. But all of that I don't think should distract from the fact that this is a phenomenal idea, Blobz. And I'm sorry it's taken me so long to feature it. I just was a little bit intimidated by it, and perhaps undeservedly so. It's just a beautiful puzzle that flows if you put your mind to it. Hope that you guys enjoyed the puzzle, the video maybe, and I'll see you back for the next one. Bye-bye for now.